All right, hey guys, it's Jonathan, and welcome to another video. This Novak Djokovic story is getting a little nuts. So, uh, as an athlete, I want to encourage you to become a fan of athletes, right, and understand it, what other athletes go through, and that's what this channel is all about. So, if this is the first time you're to this channel, I'm Olympian Jonathan Edwards. I run athletespecific.com, which is a performance coaching program for athletes with big dreams and the parents and coaches that support them. So this Novak Djokovic story is really fascinating. Quickly, a little recap if you haven't been following it. So, the Australian Open is one of tennis's four big Grand Slam events, and Novak Djokovic is arguably one of the greatest tennis players in the world. He has won 20 Grand Slam titles. 9 of those titles have happened in Australia. Now, couple things with COVID and the pandemic, what has happened is really a moving of the goalposts, right? This idea that, what was normal is now not normal, or what was normal is now harder. And the idea of vaccinations and entrance into countries, this is a ever evolving situation, right? It's going to change from country to country and from year to year and from variant to variant, right? Like we've had Delta, we've had Omicron, we're going to have Megatron and Bumblebee and all the other ones coming, who knows. But what I want to talk about today is, first, I just want to be sure that you understand this is not a political discussion, right? I'm not trying to make this a political discussion. What I am trying to get people to understand is that the first thing that we can do is take 100% responsibility for the situation we're in. And because this is a fluid, ever changing situation, how we adjust to certain things is going to need to change. What worked yesterday, what worked last year, what worked 10 years ago needs to evolve. And so as a athlete on the highest level, right, there's a couple factors here. One, athletes that compete on the big stage, they have a support team around them. I call this like so you have your immediate support team. And in tennis, like, athletes are basically kind of autonomous. They are individual teams as they go represent their country around the world, right? So Djokovic is Serbian, but he has a support staff of coaches and athletic trainers and medical people and managers and agents and things like that that support him. But one of the things that I encourage all my athletes to have is a athlete mastermind. So a group of people outside of beyond that immediate team. So let's say you're not a tennis player, but you are on a team that has their own medical people and their own managers, and you are one of a number of athletes. Um, Having a group of people outside of that you can basically bounce ideas off of and get second opinions from is really important, because they're going to give you an unbiased situation. In this, what I wanted to talk about today was this idea that, is Djokovic like sabotaging his own success? And this is a really kind of this is a big topic, because while there is like this crazy like politicians are all over it in Australia, and the idea of being vaccinated and being unvaccinated and being able to enter and not enter, like the COVID protocols down there are some of the most severe in the world. Uh, One of my favorite Formula One photographers, Kim Illman, he blogged about his travels back to Australia, where they had to have a 14-day quarantine. After the Tokyo Olympic Games, athletes that were already in quarantine at the Olympic Village in Tokyo had to then fly back to Australia and withstand up to 2 weeks in a quarantine hotel, where basically you couldn't leave your hotel for 2 weeks. I'll post Kim's video about that below. It's a really fascinating story to see it. But this story about Djokovic, which is kind of interesting, is like they knew, right? They knew what the protocols were going down to Australia, and what they needed to do before they left, and all sorts of things. Those rules and regulations were set out in stone. Now, what's happened here, what's kind of come out in the news as this has been reported, because when Djokovic got to Australia, he was actually kind of put in quarantine, and he was kind of apprehended by the border control people. And in Australia, this is getting politicized, and he's a bit of a pawn, and I get that. But what I want to talk about is this idea that, as an athlete who takes 100% responsibility, you could avoid all these things, right? And so that obviously hasn't been done here. And so I don't, there are athletes that are right now registered to compete. The Australian Open is going to start Monday. What is that? That's January 16th, sorry, 17th. And there are athletes competing there on medical exemptions, things like that. They have jumped through the hoops necessary. However, it seems like Djokovic's team has taken a little bit of a different route. Maybe they've dropped the ball. Maybe they've done that on purpose, like they're trying to make a statement or whatever. But the idea here is that Djokovic is on the verge of becoming the greatest tennis player of all time. Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal are the other two athletes that all have 20 Grand Slams each. Djokovic has won 9 of his 20 in Australia. So what is at risk right now is not only missing this event this week that starts Monday, where he might have to default, um, but then there's also the potential here because of Australia's COVID rules and their travel rules and their immigration laws with COVID, is he may be like have a 3-year ban from being able to come to Australia at all, which would, which odds are if 50% of the Grand Slams you've won have been in this country, wouldn't you think you'd do everything you could to make sure that you didn't basically sacrifice that or make it any harder than it needed to be? That really is what is fascinating here. And one of the concepts psychologically that people don't really talk a lot about is the fear of success. And so you would think that Djokovic with 20 Grand Slam titles has no problem with this success, and I would agree with you. But isn't it odd that his team and those around him didn't do every little thing to cross every T and dot every I? Because that has obviously not happened in this story. There's been some basic breaches of protocol that could have been avoided to avoid this entire situation, and that didn't happen. And so, why then did that happen? Well, when you think about fear of success, some athletes when they come on the verge of doing something fantastic, whether it's winning their first title or winning their first championship, or and we have there's stories abound, you just of athletes that have had a really difficult time winning that first gold medal or their only medal or whatever it may be. um, there are times when athletes put on themselves this like little glass ceiling, and the fear of success is kind of like that. And so here is Djokovic, like this close to just killing it and not just becoming the greatest ever, but putting more Grand Slam titles under his belt than any athlete in history. And yet, and we have to look first to the athlete, because what happens as athletes is athletes love the doing of the thing. Whatever your sport is, you really love that. No athlete, loves managing the press or managing plane tickets or the hotel bookings or things like that. But athletes, especially in tennis, some athletes, they have to learn those skills as they go up the ranks, right? And I'm sure Djokovic had to do that at some point in his career. But now what's happened is that the team around him is failing him, in my opinion. And so that's where, but the athlete you can't just abdicate all of that responsibility. You still have to be the leader that you want to be. Like you have to set that goal. And I think what's happened here is that from a kind of mental skills standpoint, is that Djokovic and his team have kind of taken their eye off the ball. Like they've kind of lost the ultimate goal, is which is they've taken their foot off the gas. How many other ways can I say this? But the idea is that if he has in the back of his head to be the greatest ever, then that changes things. And one of the things that would change is, how do we deal with every country we're going to go to? Now, what may have said in here is a little bit of hey, we win here all the time. We love it here. Australians love us. Now, that being said, Djokovic does not have the same like fan appeal as say Roger Federer, who is globally beloved, and Rafael Nadal, who is also equally loved. Probably not on the same scale as Federer, but he's definitely up there. And Djokovic, though, has this history of kind of stirring the pot a little bit, and he's unvaccinated. And I am all for athletes remaining unvaccinated. That is a personal choice, and it's a difficult one when countries say no, you have to. That's a weird moving of the goalposts. Okay, that's a big value performance ask of any athlete. So That's not my point here, but the what I'm trying to get at is that the management of all of the paperwork, there are openings for an athlete to get down there, and that's been dropped. So what can an athlete do with this? What, one, you can maintain that really high vision and that high goal that you have for yourself. So, and that's going to change, right? So, as Michael Phelps won more and more gold medals, actually before he was even up there, like his coach had this vision of turning Michael Phelps into the greatest athlete ever. What I would suggest is happening here with Djokovic's team is that they'd like that to happen, but they have they are missing that kind of all out, like cutthroat attitude, like this, we're going to do this. Now, if he is taking some sort of political stand and he's kind of liking this attention and liking the message that's being sent here, that's all well and good, but that's a very personal decision. And unfortunately, it may cost him here the chance to compete at a high level and win another Grand Slam. And there's only so many of those opportunities. As an athlete, you have to respect every single opportunity you get. And naturally, for tennis players, they they look forward to these Grand Slams. They're a big boost every year for them. It's a big deal to be there. It's a chance to create history, just like golfers go through the same type of situation. But here, what we're seeing, if that's the case, is kind of a value versus performance decision, right? They value the chance to kind of stir things up and take a stand and not be pushed around. But only time will tell if what they're standing for now um, really interferes with a thing that they have valued up until this point, right? So that's really kind of, it's fascinating to me. So while I titled this video, is Djokovic like sabotaging his success? There is an element of that, right? But again, I completely respect whatever values he has personally, and hope that those are like coming through here. But if this just comes down to your immediate team is dropping the ball and they're not respecting kind of the importance, or like the athlete has delegated that. As an athlete, you can only delegate so much, but any business owner will tell you that you still need to keep your eye on the focus. You still need to be the leader of your team. And even though this is an individual tennis player, he is the leader of that team. And if somebody else has been given the leadership and they're missing the point, like they're dropping the ball, that's really that's sad for us as sports fans and as coaches and athletes to see. So I hope this gets sorted out. I do know this ESPN article here that I'll post the link below. This is a fantastic uh, interview, okay, with Pat McEnroe uh, about kind of the politicization. Why can't I say that word? Precipita. Let there be rain. Anyway, uh, the political situation in Australia right now is getting very toxic, and Djokovic has been roped into that as a bit of a pawn. There is some belief of that, and some acknowledgement of that. But again, as an athlete, you've got to take 100% responsibility. You've got to lead your team, whether that's a big team or not, and then you have to then cross all the T's and dot all the I's to avoid these pitfalls, these traps, these challenges, unnecessary challenges that you have to go through. Because what do you want to be doing? You want to be, exhibiting your talents. You want to be in your state, like your flow states, showing what you can do best. And for Djokovic, it's being on the on a hard court in Australia, in Melbourne, winning another Grand Slam title. So let's hope we get to see that. So, what do you think about this? Leave me a comment below. Right, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if you've got any insight in the story that I might have missed here. Go ahead and write that below. But again, do it respectfully. All right, this is all about helping athletes avoid these situations and those similar to down the road. So if you can add to that conversation, go ahead and leave a comment below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Please subscribe. It really helps the algorithm, and I'd love to see this channel grow, because my job is to help athletes avoid these situations in the future. Because, and this is a fact, this Australian Open will continue regardless if Djokovic is there or not, right? And so that's the thing about sport, is that you may hate the rules, you may not like the situation, the environment, the people, places, and things that are being involved, but the bottom line is these events will still go on. right? Somebody will be awarded this Grand Slam title in a few weeks, and whether Djokovic is there or not, and that's just something that you need to consider. Whatever it is, whatever sport you play, whatever event you're going to, you've got to take 100% responsibility for your outcome, and it all starts here. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.